Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? Do a couple audio checks and think I got the visuals swapped over from my other setup, but let me know if anything looks a little funky. We'll do a little intro and then we'll get to the gaming. You guys will be on a little bit of a delay. That's just something built into the YouTube streaming, and then also it does help with if one of the players were to watch the stream on another monitor or something, the delay should help kind of reduce any cheating there. This is the 2025 August beginner tournament, and we're in the semifinals now. Let me pull up the standings here. So I was checking the games database earlier. I thought that Taket and Lottie had played some before, but the database didn't find anything for 6x6 games. So I don't know if I'm misremembering or maybe they've only played async together on the Discord or something like that. But this should be good. These are both great players, and don't let the beginner tournament tag fool you. It's just because they have not participated in many beginner tournaments before, so they still have a shot at this. But these should both be intermediate players if you're going by tags, and probably as good or better than I am. So hopefully the commentary that I offer will be of some use to you guys, or at least entertaining. So Tackett had a bye first round, and Lottie took the quarterfinals over Avalokar, and so here they are now in the semifinals. Scalpel had a bye, and then Pozo came out on top of Riddle, and then they finished the game, the other semifinal match. They finished up earlier today, but I was traveling at the time, so was not able to cover that. But it looks like it went into blitz tie breaks. I think they played maybe 6 or 8 games total, the two normal matches, and then since those were tied, they went into blitz 3 minutes plus 5 second increment. All the other parameters the same, still a 6x6 board, still two Comey, and they just kind of battle it out until one of them wins both games in a match. And Pozo came out on top of that. The bracket's not updated yet, but he will be moving over into the finals, and he will face whoever comes out on top today. And again, this is going to be Tackett and Lottie today. They'll each play one game with the white pieces. So whoever has white first game will then swap. And then this is the first beginner tournament that we're using Comey. We've been using Comey in the community for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years now, seriously, and just kind of playing around with it before then. But this is the first time that we've used it in a beginner tournament. And Comey is kind of a first player advantage correction. So a Comey of 2 means that we're going to add 2 to the flat count score of black, assuming that it goes to an in-game state where flats matter. So if the board fills up or if one player runs out of pieces, then the flats showing for black, you'll add 2 to that. And you might think it only affects the end game, but because of that kind of handicap or first player offset, it allows black to play 1 or 2 defensive moves even in the opening, sometimes in the opening, sometimes later on, but it allows them to do that without immediately falling behind and then just having white railroad them from there. And let's see, what are they playing for? First place is going to get the first pick of either these capstones shown on screen. These are the Wolf and Hawk capstones from World Builders Market, and they're metal, so it's like a pewter and a brass or whatever soft metals they cast these in, that mimic those kind of look of those materials. They're super nice to play with. I've got a set out in the garage that I'm fixing to ship off with a board I'm working on, and they have some nice heft to them. Great size for the classic set. And then the other option that the first player or the winner can pick from is going to be this 3mm MDF board that I cut, and then comes with the tavern pieces, enough to play 5x5 or 6x6, and then a bag to carry it in. So first place gets first pick, second place gets the whatever first place didn't pick. And for those of you that did participate in the tournament but did not make it to the bracket stage or don't win first or second place, there are lottery prizes up for draw. So we have some copies of my book, level one, and then also we have two high level game reviews. So myself or usually someone else on the board, or if we have a volunteer from the community, we'll kind of look at a game of your choosing, go through it and offer suggestions for improvement, or telling you that you're on the right track. All right, so I think I've gone over about everything there. This tournament is brought to you by the U.S. Tax Association, so that's who funds all the prizes and organizes the tournaments. And then we do two live events per year. We go to Gen Con in Indianapolis in the summertime, and then in fall we go to PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia. We're trying to add some more things to that. I know Knock, one of the other board members, was able to do a tournament, or at least an exhibition at a smaller convention near where he lives, so or where he was traveling. But PAX is coming up. I just booked my hotel for it yesterday, so that's going to be what, November 22nd, 23rd, or 21st through 23rd, and all of our TAC events. Well, the tournament that we're running will be happening on that Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. All right, let me hop on over and give the players the go ahead, and then we will get started here. All right, let's see if everything shows up here. All right. Let me know if I need to adjust audio levels. I know sometimes the clacks from the pieces hitting the board can be a little bit loud or soft, depending on how it goes, how Playtech's feeling that day. Mr. Bodo Fraggins. Never watched a live game before. Yeah, they can be quite exciting, especially when it gets down to lower time. Yeah, we got multiple spoonerisms in the chat. All right, Lottie versus Taket. The board I'm using is one of Gruppler's designs that he did, kind of a tribute to Aaron, who used to do some fine tact crafting. And these pieces are actually his too. They came from not Aaron, but Gruppler. They came from a previous contest we did. And we are off to the races. Let me rewind a little bit here. And we have the hug. Okay. We have the hug, and then kind of white starting with a long knight here, and black immediately taking near center with a capstone, kind of preparing to defend no matter which way black goes. So here I would expect like a B3, just a flat placement there. We have Lottie in white and Taket with the black pieces this time. Okay, and Taket chooses to run parallel here. So either planning on kind of popping the cap down here to C3, or maybe D4 minus. I feel like B3 has to happen now. I mean, you can just continue to run parallel, but white is definitely going to win this initial race, and then one of your two pieces that you've already placed is going to be out of position, and or at least you'll have to move it. So you're giving up your kind of one of your Comey right there, your one of your defensive moves that you have in the bank. And the hug, for those of you who don't know, is when you place your initial stones right beside each other. And the general idea is to kind of offer that relevance right off the bat. Uh, and then white can either decide to play to the strength of that stone, or they can decide to play almost like a normal game where you ignore your initial stones until later on in the game. Okay, so now white is just going to need to place somewhere. F3 is fine, and then replace with the cap. So yeah, the cap comes down. It's a very common pattern, and generally it's not great for the black player on this in this scenario here, or whichever player is forced to move off of their line onto yours, because now black is separated from their line of stones. And now, no matter which way black builds, they're going to be kind of further behind on tempo. So let's say that black decides to kind of make a throw threat or something like that on this E file. White's can be able to build around and make a threat more quickly. So I have to see what they decide to do here. And in the chat, looks like designing your own 3D printable set. 3D printing is great for it, especially because making the pieces is the worst part of making a tack set, or if not the worst part, the most tedious part. 6 sides per piece, and you gotta sand them all if they're made out of wood multiple times. So that's quite the quite the long process there. Black taking a think on this turn, which is prudent, but they also should have kind of anticipated this move. I don't know that continuing that line right there. I don't honestly know what the best move is for black in that situation. I was thinking that they were going to cut down to kind of B3 with a ladder and try and corral white a little bit and move the game in that direction. Um, so they may be kind of struggling just a bit to come up with the next step in the plan. Now let's see if Lottie has learned something from Abyss and the games that they've played, and we can expect a 2 or 3 minute think on this turn. Yeah, you can insert metal in there. You can insert sand in your 3D print, depending on what kind of machine you have, how much you can kind of play with the pauses and things like that on it. But I've seen like BB, like metal shot, or sand, or just inserting like nuts and things like that from the hardware store. Or you can get that metal filament, but it's a bit pricey for the stuff that actually has the metal filament in it and isn't just colored like the metal. And I guess for that you have to have a hardened nozzle too. So okay, so white with A4 here. Not quite the 2 or 3 minute think I was joking about, but A4 is horizontal and vertical. So anything that if you are ahead on tempo, anything that builds by directionality for you is going to be a good idea. This way, if black does something like 2c3 right, so they take this stack, move over onto d3, then white can just continue their vertical. So they're not dropping tempo. They're able to pivot more easily. So I like a4. I'm a fan of that move. And black's going to need to do something like a3. Um, Building anywhere up here around this capstone seems a little bit suspicious. Just easily cut off, or kind of a neighboring stone placement by white makes that almost useless. So at least down here at a3, you are you're kind of combating the problem a little bit. d5. Okay. So now we see if white just kind of ignores that and continues to build. d5 is a nice square for white to have, so black taking it does something. Now we just have to see if it's going to be enough, because it does steal that space, but it doesn't offer them much in return. c5 here, b5, e5 even. e5 is a little slow and a little kind of off center, so the weight of the board is kind of over on this side right now. Putting your piece over there could have longer term benefits, but I don't know that anything right now. And if you place something like c5, then you can prep to move your capstone over onto d4. So you could build up, a couple stones there, and then move over, and you haven't lost any of your presence. Okay, it does go with c5. I mean, c5 is also just straight up a vertical build. So it builds vertically. It blocks black from kind of moving around this direction. b5 is going to be a good square for white to have in the future. I don't know if she'll go with that or begin building down this way. Building down this way has some of the cons that I was saying earlier about black building up here. The capstone can kind of just come over and cover it, and then you have to. White's a little further ahead than black was in that point, so they can just replace it. But it does. It's not something that is my first thought, I guess is how I can say it. If I were white, I would wait to build down here until you have some more stones secured up this way, because then you can build down here and black can't take over because you have a road threat kind of going from a5 to f3, that direction. Yeah, 6x6 is a little different than 5x5. It's a little bit of a slower game. You have more defensive options, and the pivot is a little harder to do. 5x5, just with the smaller board, you can be making a vertical road and then almost immediately make a horizontal threat. This one, there's a little bit more separation. So it does take a little bit more time for a threat to develop, and the pivot's a little bit harder. Okay, so black took b5, another move similar to the d5 we saw earlier, kind of just prevents white from easily making that stronger shape here. I think c6 is still fine here. White might pivot down to b2. Most tournaments we run are 6x6. There's a 7x7 tournament once a year, and that's like 40 pieces per side, and then two capstones instead of one. Most all the intermediate, beginner, tech open, championship, all that's on the 6x6. So white can take a move from black's book and play something like a5 here. It is a little slow, but it robs black of that connection over there. And this connection over here for black means that white cannot move their capstone onto b4. They can still move it onto d4 for now, but then the threat is easily kind of renewed with e5. So white can decide to take here, kind of occupy that square and deprive black of that. Or they can assume that they have more time and then just, you know, build somewhere on their somewhere else. All right, both players pretty even on time. 9.5 minutes. Okay, Lottie does go with c6. So, sorry. Kind of expecting black to take a5, just as a lot of other options are not as good. Don't see anything sneaky coming up. Hey, okay. I can hide you if you want to be hidden. What are my thoughts on more long form tech games? I'm a fan of the longer game. I've gotten to where I can passably play Blitz, but I struggle in the, I don't know what they would call it. I guess chess would probably call it rapid, this format that we have now, um, where it's, 10, 15, 20 minutes a player. I struggle at that because I always feel like I have more time than I do. Blitz, I know that I have no time. So I kind of just go more instinct play, I guess. But in this format, I always feel like I have time, and then I don't, and the clock starts giving me that 10-second warning and things like that, and then it just gets out of hand quickly. Okay, black does take a5. Um, and you can see that black is now developing. So white's capstone is pinned from going to b4 because then this c3 throws up here to make that road. And black is working on this vertical coming down this direction. Kind of an easy stop to that right now is going to be b2. Okay, but Lottie goes on this side. I guess thinking that black's main threat is this horizontal, so adding a piece to defend against that. Not sure what the bots would say the best move was at that point. And I think pretty soon we're going to have some collapse on the board here. It's got too many stones for too many spaces filled up with single flats here, and that can get dangerous. So I'd start looking at ways to collapse this down in a way that's favorable to whichever player is doing the collapse. Let's see. Classical chess. Yeah, and maybe as TAC grows and more people become involved, we can push for some tournaments at least with longer time controls. So as white with this board state, I'm starting to look at ways that I can start a fight. So I feel like black has too much built up here that could easily start forcing me into things that I don't want to do. So I would start looking for kind of fights to pick. Um, because if you just keep placing, then you run into the situation where the fight happens whether or not you want it or not, and it can end up hurting you instead of being in your favor. So, like you would want, let's say that I want this stone to be the one that starts the fight. Then I would need to start. I need to have D2 and D1, and that way when I do capture with that, it comes with attack. Same thing if you wanted B6 minus to be where the fight starts. You can kind of look at which capture wars you would win, or if you lost them, you could put a wall and it would be beneficial to you longer term. But I'd start looking at what fights I can start that are going to gain me board position and control of some stacks. Okay, that was a B2 and an immediate C2. Um, Probably just B1 here. And I know I've said this a couple times, but you always have to keep in mind every turn because sometimes you forget this capstone is still pinned from going to B4. Because people will do that, and I've done it in the past, I'm sure too, where you look at a defense and you're like, "Yep, I can always move that capstone over," but you can't because you lose to that road. Players approaching 6 minutes each. So if you guys are playing this match here, would you want white or black right now? So we're tied on flats, or showing flats. The black is +2 on flat count. We are white to move, and white will be 2 reserves ahead, or 2 reserves fewer. White will be closer to winning on, or not winning, but ending the game on kind of material depletion. Okay, Lottie does go with B1. D6 left. I don't think that he'll move the capstone stack over. I mean, I could be totally wrong on that, but 2C3 left is possible to interrupt this, but I think that just gets filled right back in. So if possible, you want to respond to your threat with a threat of your own, and so they can black can break this line up here and make a threat of their own. So Toblorch is going with white on this. C2 left also breaks this up. But I'm expecting D6 left. That is just recaptured if Lottie wants to. And I'm trying to see if just pushing that threat makes sense. Okay, so go C2 left. So we can see just an infill here. So just replacing that stone that moved with one here. Could go just with C2. D2. Now white can start working on this kind of horizontal and vertical. C2 works for both. A2 works for both, just a little more slowly. And the Taket goes for the hug. Yeah, it's it's probably not the strongest opening, but it's certainly not the weakest, and it has the advantage of a lot of people not knowing how to play against it. Okay, Lottie putting a wall at C2. I wasn't expecting a wall there. All right, so probably I think D2 works here. If you try and run away, like if you take 2B2 plus, move that stack kind of into the protection of your capstone here. I don't know that that gained you enough um, because you're not doing it with tack. So white can just put another wall down if they want to, um, and just kind of chase that stack around a little bit. And then you're letting white get another 2 pieces out on the board while you are stacking up pieces and making liabilities. Even though they're next to your capstone, they're still liabilities. Okay, Tacket approaching 3 minutes on the clock. So that so that's why I was thinking D2. Because then if you were to move that stack in a future turn here, then you're making attack threat here on D3. I don't know if that was a misclick or intentional. Just because it seems a little bit out there. Placements don't have to connect to your existing stones. That's one thing I get asked at conventions a lot when people are learning the rules. They think that you have to build a road step by step when they first start. But generally, there is some sort of like overall connectedness when you do look at a board. Um, so that D1 placement is just a little bit odd because yeah, D2 separates that even further from what you had going on. All right. The white taking D2 there prevents black from having attack threat on that row. And then that wall is probably also unnecessary. Um, Now as white, I'm thinking A2, A3, any of those. Leaning a little more towards A3, I guess. Still a few spaces on the board, but this could get a little hairy. That's one of the other reasons that I like kind of taking a fight. Helps prevent board fill. Okay, so C1 makes a little bit of sense. Now A1. And this is in preparation for moving this wall over. Because then you're moving the wall over with tack. Although I think I still like what I say, A3. Because now you've given black A3. Hey Sam, this is the semifinal. Oh, nah, that might be why you're thinking it's the finals because I have it labeled as the finals. I swear I fixed this earlier. Maybe I only fixed it on all the other things. Hey, all right. This is game one of the semifinals. I'll hop back over to the standings real quick. So we have this is Taket versus Lottie, and then this match was played earlier today. The Pozo versus Scalpel, and they went to blitz tie breaks. I think they did the two normal games and then like four blitz tie breaks, and Pozo is moving on to the finals. Okay, where are we? So let's see. Like I said, A1 sets up the wall move with tack. Um, Black not necessarily passes a move, but passes a move, and then we see the move with tack there. Wall comes over to defend. And now what? All right. White makes a threat. So drawbridge threat. Here's the road coming down this way. Move the drawbridge over. Make the road. Black is not dead in the water. They have some things that they can do to defend against this. Capstone over, like we talked about earlier, bad idea because just the infill. Now it's even worse with everything built up because now we have a horizontal road and a vertical road threat coming on. Retaking, not the end of the world, but this wall covers it, so it can come up to defend, or White might be able to ignore it and just build. But I think they would want to recapture that if it is captured. Um, this wall down here is not going to have much FCD use in the later game stages, so I'd expect come up here. They could capture with the capstone, but I think Lottie probably likes the central capstone there. Oh, I'm wrong. Okay. So not attack threat this turn, but incoming attack threat. That doesn't stop it. So B5. Cap stack moves over to B3 to defend, and then just replace, I think, just C3. This prevents the capstone from crushing on B2. It also builds presence. You have attack threat this turn, and you have attack threat next turn. So you put C2 right now. If you're really worried about the stack, then you throw it over here. So 3B2 over 1-2 gets it out of the way of the capstone here, prevents shenanigans with Black crushing their own wall here. Oh, missed a road. Okay, that's another thing that happens a lot, regardless of level on your tournament rating and everything. So we had a threat here this turn by just a placement, this horizontal road. Black saw that one, and then we have a smash threat here. So capstone over onto C4 for that road. And fortunately missed that one. All right, so Lottie takes game one. Let me check in with them real quick and see if they're gonna go straight on or if they're gonna take a 5-minute break or something. All right, we'll see what they say. And I guess while we wait, we can do a quick run through of this. So we had the hug opening, kind of a long night by White, and then Black with the traditional hug capstone placement. But then Black did a kind of a parallel run here instead of any sort of I don't even know what you would call it, more intermingled shape. I was expecting B3 here. Well, I was expecting B3 here by Black, and then since they didn't play it, White was going to win that race. White does. Black Black has their capstone deflected, and then immediately cap infill by White, which I had said earlier is usually not a good thing to happen. We had Black building around, making a soft pin on this capstone, on the White capstone here. Sorry. And they are going to go next after just a minute. I have to get some water. I'm not. My voice isn't up to the talking. Okay, so what were we saying? Black building around, making that soft pin on the capstone, and then we had lots of placements here. I was expecting d6 left here instead of c2 to kind of respond in kind with that threat. Um, the wall that I was questioning a little bit as it being a little too defensive, and then this idea of building around so that when you move this wall over, it does come with attack threat. And then we had kind of chain threats here, and ultimately ending with the mist road there. All right, so Lottie takes the first game with white. They're going to start up here after just another minute, and we'll see Taket with the white pieces, and we'll see what if Lottie decides to throw the hug back at him. But I imagine we're going to see a different opening. So the hug is really the only opening that black can choose. The other ones are, in a sense, chosen by white, and then black kind of decides a general direction for them to go in. And if you guys have any questions about that game, or you want me to go back to a certain part of it, explain why something may or may not have happened. I mean, I wasn't the one playing it, but I might be able to offer some insight into what they may have been thinking. All right, Seek is up. I was going to tell them good to go, but looks like they already know good to go. Okay, so opposite corners this time. Knight's opening. Um, Cap placement to kind of stop either direction from white here. White can ignore for another turn just with f4 and kind of complete this knight shape here, this Willem shape here. Cap d4 is probably. Sorry, I'm on call. Well, I'm not on call, but all right, I'm back. Work never stops. Okay, where are we? We didn't make it very far when I got on the phone. So it does complete the Willem shape here to start off. This is popular. You start with the knight and then connect f4. That way you have a semi edge crawl that you can work on, as well as this pivot here. The problem is you have to know when and how to make this pivot, because black is going to block one or other of your options here. You make the pivot too late or commit too much to this, then you end up with all your pieces over here, no real continue threats or road threats after black shuts them down, and then black runs away on this side of the board. Looks like white is has made a little bit of the pivot here, um, and black defending. That b3 probably a little unusual. But we'll see what black does with that. A3, um, A3, B5. Those all seem somewhat reasonable to me. A4 works as well. White's going to want to either mimic with A3 or take C5. I'd lean a little more towards C5. C5 prepares to take this horizontal up this way onto the fifth row, or it also prepares that threat, which A3 would have made. Black's going to have to offer some defense now. They can take F3 now, but it just gives white the free placement there. So they do take C5. Just a little prevention, little preventative placement there. Since you can't place anything on top of another existing stone from your reserves, it's sometimes good just to steal those kind of necessary squares or those high value places for the other player to steal them. So long since you heard that ringtone. Yeah, that's my default work ringtone. So, no frills on that one. Just the basics. A couple options for white here. B5 looks pretty good. There's a guest in the chat that just said that as well. B5 now. B5 prevents black from getting a stronger shape over here. It prepares for C3 plus coming with attack threat. Kind of helps build, like I was saying earlier, if white had taken C5 earlier instead of that A3, prepares to kind of reroute your road a little bit going up that direction. Added letters and didn't recenter my title, my header. I'm sure some of you were pulling your hair out over that. Okay, white making the pivot to C2. I think that's the wrong way to pivot because you're moving away from your kind of your domain and you're just putting something down here in black's domain. So now black can take that square at B5 or A2 looks good. Okay, black just taking D2. If they already had F3, that would be a little stronger. They might take F3 this turn. That way moving the capstone over comes with tack. That way D3 left, if they had F3, D3 left comes with tack, and now it can't just be stopped with a flat placement. Black can't take B2 now. So white needs to either run up through these stones here or down around here somehow. Black can take this and kind of shut down a lot of that, especially as D3 comes over later in the game. If D3 doesn't move later in the game, I would be a little surprised. A2 is also beneficial for that because once you do D3 over, then you have this throw threat over onto A3 from here. Yeah. Okay. So D3 comes over now. I was expecting another turn of building first, but didn't happen. Okay, so with that move, Black has taken momentum. I mean, Black somewhat had momentum already. They were pretty even. Um, but Black has taken momentum with that move. White needs to decide how they want to address that. Do they want to make, or do they want to allow Black to make a threat, or do they want to preemptively cut it off? So D4 left, kind of mirroring that capstone movement, keeping that opposition between those, and that is what they go with to keep the opposition. So now you probably take, you either infill where they were, possibly even with a wall. Oh, okay. So Lottie chooses a flat to infill there. We'll see how Taket goes. Filling in right beside. Guest in the chat saying in the playtech chat, could they have gone for F3 there? Yeah. I mean, almost certainly. That's what I was expecting, was to set that up one more turn before you did it. But they get F3 now, so that's my phone ringtone. Which I should probably have put on Do Not Disturb. All right. Where do we go from here? So White's horizontal is not getting through. So White needs to figure out how they're going to pivot to the vertical. E2, Brute. Um, Probably E2. So E2 works on this future horizontal down here, and it works on this vertical here. The other option, if you want to force things, you take B5. Okay. Packet goes with B5. And then you're intending on moving D3 plus here. Or building along top here. So A5 next, then E5. And then black probably takes A5 here. I don't like it. Seems out of the way. Maybe E5. But I don't like that either. B2. B2. Final answer. Oh, am I muted? Oh, okay. Okay. Lottie agrees with me, arguing that this horizontal that white has is still not going anywhere. or not successfully going anywhere and working on their own horizontal here. B2 is also a good pivot stone for going vertical. So now we need to see if white's going to push what they have going up here, either with a capture or a5, or if they're going to also kind of intermingle and cut into this formation here with something like e2. It's about that same point last game where I asked you guys which side you'd rather be playing now. Okay. Chooses to do it with a capture. Um, this is going to result in black's favor, in my opinion. But we'll have to see which way they choose to defend against this. 2c3 left is an option, but I don't like it. I think just f3 plus, e3 plus. Buy yourself a turn to then put a wall down. Okay, Lottie goes with the threat. B2 plus. I'm expecting 2c4 left and then sc4. I'm not saying that's the best move, but that's what I'm expecting. So you got a few options here. Even a3 right probably works out. Never know. Maybe it's the best possible move. No, I think 2c4 left is a problematic move. Let's say. Okay, a3 plus. White goes for the threat, so threatening b5 minus. Black still has these stones over here to use against this, and then it buys them a turn for shenanigans. Okay, f3 plus. F5. F3. F3 is like directly combative. Um, F5 is a little slower with a little more pressure up top. Okay, going for F3. Targeting F4. Um, SD3 probably. Nope, goes for the other side of the board. SA5. Maybe you want to keep these lanes open for threats. So now is white. I mean, I don't know that you keep pushing this horizontal. Probably pivot back to the vertical. E2, that square coming up again. Or you just place D3 and say, what you gonna do about it? Okay, I don't get that one. There's something I'm missing. I don't know. Yeah, you've given black D3 here, with no kind of. Maybe you haven't been able to see my cursor the whole time. I don't know. I just clicked on it. I think D3 is good for black here. C1 I don't think is as good for white. Playtech chat saying pinning the cap from future smash on a wall on B3. Thinking of like SB2 right now. Which is possible. It just seems out of place, out of position. Okay, black responding in kind with their own wall up in the middle of nowhere, but targeting this D4 stack eventually. So to renew this pin, um, if that is what they were going for, then C6 renews the pin. E5 more strongly renews the pin. And E5 works towards this horizontal and vertical. And the game mirrors the chat here. B6 can keep the pin and go for the horizontal. It can. But the horizontal is also cut off by this wall up here. E5. C6. C6 seems purely defensive to me. Maybe keeping that square from another pin when they start walking down. Not sure. Maybe some kind of counter pin where we have when they walk down, Black wants to prevent the crush. So I don't know. It still looks pretty good for white to have e5 here. E2 still looks fine. Okay. So white making an unforced capture there, which opens up this d5 square here. Question is, do we just see d5? SD5? There's not a attack threat I'm missing, right? SD5 targets both c5 and d4. Um, which kind of cuts off either leg of white's road building attempts here. And if white crushes either of those, then the other is then up for grabs, um, with the resulting capture war. Lottie at about 8 minutes and Taket down to 322. And again, Lottie took the first game with white. Now we have Taket with white. And if Taket takes this game, then we'll go to blitz tiebreaker matches. I'm not sure if those will happen today or if they'll want to do them in the future. We'll see. And if Lottie takes this, then Lottie moves on to the finals, and no tiebreakers are needed. Lottie taking a little time on this one. What are you guys thinking? Okay. Lottie's thinking get that wall in action before a threat comes up. Okay. And white takes that wall. Not, or takes that stack with the wall. Not really as much use right now. Um, I mean, it does help stop some of black's progress, but um, it's not a threatening wall at the moment. Black filling in at d5. And then finally, somebody takes e5. It's white this time. Or it's white. Yeah, I think d5 over was not forced and may may lead to some problems later on down the line because it not only wasn't forced, but it didn't really come with tack. So the pressure just wasn't there, I guess, to make that capture kind of as meaningful as it could have been. G2 is a little bit off kilter in my mind. I liked F5 there. Bro folded under zero pressure. I mean, I'm not sitting in the hot seat. I mean, this is still a little nerve wracking, but it's nothing like playing the game. So, missed threats, ghost threat, phantom threats. You see something coming and do something to defend it, only to look at that game later and go, there was never a threat there. That was I don't know why I was so worried about that. Um, it happens. I mean, or maybe that was the best move, and I didn't calculate far enough ahead. F2. What is an F2? Okay, now we see F5. Not a threat currently, but could turn into one. Yeah, I like F5. I mean, I liked it last turn, but I like it this turn too. Yeah, Sam, I think they're playing kind of where the action is. Well, sometimes, and then sometimes they're seemingly throwing random stones. But yeah, but I like F5. I like this formation here. I like the fact that this whole stack can come up and be quite annoying and force a wall here. Or if the cap is moved out of place, then I don't know if it's 10U, but it's dang close at that point. So I like those. I like those options. Some kind of immediate back and forth there. Both players making citadels. This one more of a steal, more of a taking space, so that black doesn't have that throw option. The other citadel was helps prevent the vertical. Um, doesn't add a whole lot to the threat potential for black. Gets us closer to board fill. Players are even on material. Actually, black is a little ahead because they usually have one more stone than white. Rolls are a little bit reversed here. It's a more fast play, kind of a response and immediate counter. No threats on the board currently. Um, I feel like white's cooking something here. What are they cooking? I still kind of like moving all that B3 stack up. Maybe take A3 first. In fact, A3 maybe should have been played instead of A6. Yeah, potentially. We're not quite to end game state here, and players are getting fairly low on time, so some decisions are going to have to be made pretty quickly here. Okay, black setting up that threat on the D and E file. And if I were white, especially with the time that is remaining, I'm looking at making a move very soon. Okay, they make a move, but it's not a threat. It does help them out flat wise. It does help them out um, protecting that A4 stack, but not a direct threat, not an immediate threat. I was more of a fan of moving the whole stack up. However, this is a 10U threat. One C4 over to make a hard cap. I think threatens this mess here as well as this. And whoever's in the chat, maybe it's Alion. Maybe Alion's in the chat being a guest today on the Playtac chat. Probably can't see it because of my mug's in your way. Okay, black preemptively kind of messing with that. White can renew. Can it be stopped? White needs to renew with F3 plus. Yep. Now black needs to do D3 plus, even though it looks horrible. That doesn't do it. So we'll see if white sees this, and if I'm correct that it is continue. Actually, if they hadn't put that wall there, it would have been better because this is a threat. That would have been a road threat, a sneaky road threat. Yep. But in this case, their own wall, Lottie's own wall, gets in our way. So unless I missed something, that's good game, and they do have a tie. All right. Looks like it's Tinu, eh? Nope, just Tinu, not Tinu, eh? All right, let's run back through this one real quick, and then we'll find out what the players want to do. So we had Knights opening, kind of a long capstone there, and then completing the Williams system. Black choosing to block, going the vertical direction in this orientation, choosing a flat to cut in with there, and then stealing space. And we saw a lot of kind of stealing space, slow placement, very very symmetrical board, kind of mirror image of a lot of this, mirror actions. Cap steps over, and other cap follows, and then we kind of have some exchanges here. White made a few uninstigated captures, which I thought was going to come back and bite them, but Here they come up with there's the other kind of unforced capture, and then we end up with uh, the missed continue threat. I guess here, or what did I say they needed to do? D3 plus, I think was the only way to stop it. There's a world where I mean I haven't analyzed any of this besides just looking at it, so there's certainly the possibility that this was forced win regardless of what Black did here, but um, that that wall actually got in their own way. I think it would have been really neat to see White try and pull that Tenyu and then lose to that throw threat. That would have been very interesting. All right, let me check on Discord. I'll be right back. All right, let's see what we got here. Waiting on a response. Lottie says she's good to run it now. Taket is in process of responding. Okay, looks like Tacket is in a different time zone and had a long day, and so looks like we will be continuing this some other time. I may or may not be able to cover it. Depends on when it is. Luckily, this one was on in my time Sunday in the afternoon, so I was able to hop on and do it with minimal work interruptions. But I don't normally get that opportunity during the week, so we'll see what happens. But I want to thank you guys for sticking around and watching. Hopefully, you learned something or at least were entertained for a little while. And if you want to support this channel or don't support this channel, just support TAC in general. Support the U.S. Tax Association, either with a membership or just by participating in our events, being an active community member, um, and just support TAC in general by taking it out to the park, playing with some randos, or taking it to your game night with your friends, or your game night at your local friendly game store. And I'll try and catch the blitz matches on this one, or maybe I'll try and do a review for it. I'm not even in frame on my webcam. I'm not out of practice with this stuff. But try and cover that, and then the finals. Hopefully, that will be on a time that I'll be able to cover it. So whoever comes out on top with Tacket and Lottie. If I don't get to cover that, then we'll see the winner of that and Pozo 123 in the finals for the August 2025 beginner tournament. Let me double check. They didn't change their mind. Okay. Yep, looks like we are going to postpone the tie breaks, which is understandable. I mean, I've just been commenting on this and I'm brain dead. So I can't imagine what they're doing playing it and feeling that pressure over the last couple hours. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Leave a comment and I'll answer you, clarify something that I said or missaid, and then I'll see you guys on the next one. I'll stick around for just a minute because I know there is a delay. So if you guys have um, parting thoughts, parting shots, anything like that, just let me know. We'll let some Argbot run while we wait on this. Argobot plays fast. Doesn't always play the best, but the timing of it is the hardest thing about it. Yep. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Toplorch. Thanks everybody else who came out. I'll call you out specifically next time if you're in the chat. But we had Bodo Fraggins came by today. And then we had some good old lurkers, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. You guys have a good one. Thanks.